Hi, this is Siddhi, and today we are going to talk about autism and how to toilet train autistic children. Okay, I have purposely split this topic into five small parts because I think in that way parents can take whichever parts that they want to focus on. But my suggestion would be that always go from the first part to the last because that will give you a better understanding of how to toilet train autistic children. Okay, so these are the five parts that I have split the topic into. Today, we are only going to cover the first part, that is toilet training general. Okay, so we are going to go over how toilet training works generally, and specifically what are the sort of details that you have to take consider when you're dealing with autistic children. Okay, so the first part to understand is that toilet training starts early. It starts as early as around 18 months to 2 years of age, and this is where, if you ask, if where I see a sort of a gradual deviation from now norm, because I started working when I was in 2001 in Mumbai, and there were no the concept of diapers was very rare. It would only be found in like really affluent areas. So I rarely saw such a severe delay in toilet training even among normal children. But once the concept of diapers case started coming in, the process of toilet training started getting delayed, and I'll explain why that happened as we go ahead. But keep in mind that toilet training, you're supposed to start toilet training a child from the time that he's 18 months to 2 years of age. Okay. So toilet training happens in different stages, and I'm going to go over the stages as we go. Keep in mind this is a general process for potty and susu, but I will go through the detailed part of it on in the later part in other videos. Okay. So the first stage of toilet training is tolerating the toilet. Okay. So when you are working with autistic children, it's very important to first introduce the concept of a toilet without the expectation to do susu or the expectation to do potty, because that so many autistic children don't do well with demands, and when they're forced to do it, they will sort of get resistant and they will block it off. So what works much better for these children is if you gradually introduce the concept of toilet. So generally when I'm working with parents on toilet training on the first go, I will always tell the parent the first thing to do is basically just take the child to the toilet and start making them sit on the toilet for no reason. Okay, like, and over here also, now again you have another aspect that comes in with toilet training, is how much time is the child able to sit. Many a times autistic children do not sit for long time at all. Like, they cannot even sit for 5 minutes. So the concept of I want to push out the potty never happens, because the child is up and ran away before that. So you need to get the child to learn to sit. So basically just sitting at the toilet in an incremental format is something that needs to be worked on. So the first thing you basically need to do is just take your child to the toilet and just make him sit and stand in the toilet for, initially maybe start with 10 counts, then maybe 5 minutes, and maybe 10 minutes, and always do this with a timer so that the pressure so that the child has a clear stop point, and he's not get running away because he has fought with you and run away. He has understood that he sat for that much time and then he's got off. Okay, but that's your first stage that you need to do with autistic children. It's also important for children to go through this phase, because a toilet by itself brings in a lot of sensory inputs. So you have smells, you have the light, you have the tactile input on your bum, you have the tactile input on your feet, you have the tactile input that you feel when you get a little bit wet, So the whole if you have lizards or cockroaches in your house, and that is something that comes in. So there's a lot of sensory input that is there. The flushing sound is something that is also sensory input. So it's better if you sort of take the child to the toilet, and every hour or so just make him stand for 5 minutes, get out, make him stand for 5 minutes and get out, so that he associates the toilet as something that he just goes in, stands, comes out, and he doesn't feel pressured by it. All right. The second part that toilet training requires is that toilet training requires a specific motor plan to be learned. Okay, now depending on whether you're using an Indian toilet or a Western toilet, the first thing that you need to have when you're doing toilet training is you need to have muscle tone, especially for potty, because if your tone is very poor, then you would not, if you're doing Indian toilet, you would not be able to squat for a longer period of time. If you have a Western toilet, then you would not be able to sit and put pressure for a long period of put pressure. Okay, so both the things require tone. Okay, Indian toilets and Western toilets require balance, because in Indian toilet you have to squat in that position and you have to balance yourself. In Western toilet you have to hold yourself in that position. If you're using a toilet seat, then tolerate the input of the toilet seat and sit over there, with your dangling feet, which is sometimes scary for many children on the autism spectrum, or who are autistic. So this has to be worked in parallel with uh, the improving of the muscle tone and balance aspect of your OT. Okay, and this would come in after your child has stopped being terrified of has accepted the toilet. Basically, he does not get anxious about going to the toilet. Okay, now once he has learned the motor plan, the next step would be teaching the child to associate the toilet to doing susu or doing potty without any anxiety. Okay, now for this, the carer has to basically figure out the timing that they need to that figure out the timing at which the child needs to go, and you always need to sort of error on a shorter time rather than a longer time to ensure success. Okay, and this means that the carer has to do a lot of prior planning. And this is where I feel that since the time we've started having diapers, parents and carers have sort of become a little bit relaxed, because if you before the advent of diapers, there would be always a thought process going on that where are the toilets available, where is the where would my child go. But after the diaper, there is no planning, there is no anxiety with it, because nobody's scared about wetting the car seat or wetting the bus seat or spoiling the clothes or anything like that. Okay, similarly, parents rarely, now I see parents rarely carry an extra set of clothes. Many a times, when I used to take in-person sessions, I would have parents who did not have an extra set of clothes, and they would just have a diaper and they would come in. So a lot of this planning is something that I feel, because of the advent of diaper, we have missed out, and that's the reason why the whole process has got more delayed. Okay, the the association by itself takes a long period of time, because toilet training is a long process. So once the child has associated the toilet to the to susu or potty, you will see that the child is then ready to move to the next step of communication. How would you know that the child is ready to move towards the next step? Is something that he will be able to control himself to go to that place. That is very important. The control aspect is very important. He will understand that he has to control his susu, control his potty until he reaches the toilet. That's when we know that the child has associated, and now we can move to the next step. Okay, while we are doing associating, the next step is also to do generalize. You have to generalize the concept of toilet training. Okay, again, with autistic children, this is extremely important, because autistic children do tend to be rigid about toilets. So they would do potty, susu and everything in their own toilet, but they may not do it outside, they may not do it in school. So this is the time when you are parallelly supposed to, just you start off with just the desensitizing, means basically you just take him anywhere. You still, your child is still wearing the diaper, but you take the child and you make them stand in the toilet, in the mall or maybe somebody's house, or then progressively just make the child sit on the toilet. So progressively you do the same process that you did in your house, you start doing it outside the house. Okay, so that when the child figures out the associating, by that time the child has learned to tolerate toilets in different places too. Okay, now once the child has learned to control himself, he will show one of three different types of behaviors. Okay, the first type of behavior is that maybe he will learn to go to the toilet by themselves. Okay, so this is where I find many autistic parents will sort of relax. Okay, my child knows he's toilet trained. Well, he's not. Okay, that's still him being just at the associating stage. So the child will, you will find that the child, when he feels like susu or potty, he will go by himself to that place. Okay, the second type of behavior the child may do is the child may come to you. Okay, the child may come to you and you would take him to the toilet. And the third type of behavior is the child will show some sort of behavior, means they will either touch their private parts, or they will clench their feet, or they will go still, which tells you that the child is ready, has started developing a awareness of his internal states regarding susu and potty, and now he's ready to move towards communication. Okay, so now what do we do for a child who goes to the toilet by himself? So the child who goes to the toilet by himself, you first keep the door closed and keep a card of the toilet on it. So what happens is, now the child has a requirement for you, for him to communicate to you. Okay, so when you see the child going to the toilet, and the card is and the door is locked, then you can get the child to exchange the card and open the door, let him use the toilet. So he understands that exchanging the card means I have to tell that I have to go to toilet or I have to go to susu. Okay, if the child is somebody who comes to you, then the card stays with you. Okay, so you would basically, when the child comes to you, you would show the card of toilet, or of toilet, and you would take the child to the toilet. Now keep in mind, the card that you use has to be the picture of the real toilet. It cannot be the generic specs that you get at online. It has to be the real toilet that the child sees in his house. Okay, so when the child comes to you, you'll show the card, and then you would take the child to the toilet and let him do his business. The third type is where the child is doing something and he shows behaviors. That is the time you would show him the card and you would take him to the toilet. Okay, so in all the three ways, you are now starting to associate the concept of communication to the child. Okay, that you have to tell the child, that the child, you start introducing the concept of communication, that you have to tell. Now here is where I find a lot of parents tend to make a mistake, because they tend to go fast, and this is something even therapists do. They tend to go too fast. They will directly go to sign. Now I don't like using signs at this stage, because the problem with signs is that it is introduced by the parent. So what happens is that it's very difficult to generalize that sign across other people, because the pinky is the parent's pinky. It is not the nobody else's pinky. Okay, whereas the card is something I can basically hand it over to anybody else, and the child will still see the fact that it goes ahead. Okay, once the child comes to that point where he or she understands that concept and either gives the PEXCA card, then or picks up the PEXCA card when he's asked, then you start moving to adding a word or a sign. That is the stage you would move towards adding a word or a sign. Okay, now again, this is where parents will sort of get figure out, once the child is there, the parent is asking and the child is answering, the parents think, oh, my child has toilet trained. No, again, this is the area that parents make mistake. Many autistic children develop a sort of a faulty thought process in their mind that it is supposed to be my parents' job to watch me and to get to tell me when you're supposed to go to toilet. So they get stuck at this stage. So when the parent is not there, the carer is not there, then what they will do is that they will go off and they will just do it in the place that they are standing or sitting. Okay, so that's why this is something that you need to get it to the point where the communication has to come to the point where it moves to spontaneous. Okay, what do I mean by spontaneous? Spontaneous means that the parent is not watching the child. The child has the capacity that if I keep the card out, or has the capacity to just come and tell me, Mama, I need to go to toilet or susu. That is when I know that the child has reached the point of communication. But in parallel to that, what you also need to do is you need to generalize the communication. Once the child has come to the point of associating, you have come to the point where you're showing the card, you also need to now start using the same process outside with different people and different places. So the child has to be actively taught to use the card with the teacher. The child has to be actively taught to use the card with his masi or his chachi or whoever's house that he's going to, so that he learns that he has to express, communicate his needs and go. And this is where it is important, because the toilet training is one aspect which does not have a clear manned concept. So it is a mixed program. So you need the child to understand that in some places he can go by himself, and in some places he has to communicate. So to do that, you have to make an extra effort to generalize the toilet training across different places. And I feel this is where a lot of the times parents and professionals sort of miss out, and they don't actually put that effort in. Again, the impact of diaper is something that I see evident over here, because when so in my sessions, when my child is anywhere about two, I will tell the parent, don't put a diaper on the child when he comes to my session, and I make a point that my toilets are clean and available for the child. So what happens is then that forces my child and me and my parent to sort of be alert about what is happening. But that doesn't happen in many therapy setups. Many therapy setups, the therapist will ask the parent to put the diaper on the child, because they are worried about their place being messed up, or their session time getting used up because the child has gone to potty. But according to me, that defeats the process, defeats the purpose. I mean, you're working on toilet training, you have to get that process 100%. That's a priority process. Everything else comes after that. So I think this is again another place where the diapers has become a problem. Okay, so basically, if you see, toilet training as such does not become complete until and unless the child understands that the ownership of communicating toilet is his ownership. It's not the parents' ownership. The child understands where he can go by himself, and where he needs to ask for permission from other people. Okay, so that's when you can say that the toilet training is completed. All right, now there are certain points that you need to keep in mind when you're doing toilet training. So the first point is that toilet training is an inherently long process. So even for normal children, when if you start toilet training at the age of 18 months, it takes at least till 4 years to get proper control and communication. Okay, accidents are expected in even among normal children during daytime until the age of 4. Okay, so this is something that you have to keep in mind, and this is where I find that many parents tend to, many parents and carers tend to sort of get frustrated, because when the child has an accident, they feel, everything's undone. No, it's not undone. It is normal process. It takes time. Toilet training is a very, very, very complex process, and it takes time within normal children, so it's going to further take a longer time with autistic children. It does happen faster with some children, but those children may also have issues with generalization. Okay, so we'll talk about that later in the other videos. But toilet training is a long process, and it requires a lot of patience. All right. That's it for today. Thank you.